I was reborn, waking up on the exact day Han Shue's mother threw a bank card with 500,000 yuan in my face. In my previous life, I stepped on that card and proudly declared that true love couldn't be bought. All I got in return was her mother's cold smirk and Han Shue's disgusted look. To prove I was worthy of Han Shui, I gave everything I had. During college, I worked tirelessly to earn scholarships. After graduation, I joined her family's company at the very bottom and worked harder than anyone else. While others went home, I stayed late, sacrificing my health for the company's success. When the Han family business nearly went bankrupt, I used my business skills and relentless effort to secure a crucial investment, saving the company from collapse. I thought my loyalty would finally earn me a place beside Han Shui. Instead, it destroyed my body. Years of overwork left me with terminal cancer. When the doctor told me I only had days to live, Han Shui arrived with Li Hai. There was no sadness in her eyes, only relief. Li Hai wrapped an arm around her waist and smiled down at me. Thanks, Chen Yu. The company is stable now. Han Shui and I are getting engaged next month. Han Shui quietly added, Don't blame me. My mom was right. We were never meant to be. Only then did I realize the truth. I had spent my entire life helping them build their future, only to be used as a stepping stone and thrown away when I was no longer needed. But this life would be different. Without hesitation, I accepted the bank card and smiled. Don't worry, Annie. I'll stay as far away from Han Shui as possible. For the first time, Lin Fangxing lost her composure. She had expected me to refuse, but never imagined I'd accept so easily. To make sure she wouldn't change her mind, I quickly took the card and continued. I'll leave Han Shui, resign from the company, move to another city, and even change my contact information. She'll never hear from me again. Is that enough? She stood there speechless, staring at me like she'd seen a stranger. I couldn't blame her. Just yesterday, I had ridden a public bike through heavy rain for over 30 minutes just to buy Han Shui a slice of the famous cake she casually mentioned. I arrived soaked from head to toe, only for her to roll down a car window, take the cake, and frown. Chen Yu, why do you always make yourself look so pathetic? Li Hai sat in the driver's seat beside her, smiling with open mockery, looking at me like a loyal dog desperate for its owner's approval. Back then, I wasn't angry. I was simply heartbroken. I gave a faint smile, reached into my wallet, and slowly pulled out a photograph. This version keeps the original story intact while making it more natural, emotionally engaging, and easier to read. It's also around 25 to 30% shorter without losing any key events. It was a photo of Han Shui and me, the most precious thing I once owned. Right in front of Lin Fangxing, I tore it in half without a second thought and tossed it into the trash. Then I emptied my wallet, throwing away everything connected to Han Shui, even the cheap keychain she had given me. Look, Auntie, I said calmly. This should prove I'm serious. I don't need any of this anymore. You can rest easy now. After leaving the cafe, I went straight to the bank. Seeing the balance of 501, 354 yuan on the ATM screen, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. In my previous life, I only had 1,354 yuan to my name. This money wasn't just cash, it was my chance to start over. I withdrew 10,000 yuan, put it in my pocket, and headed to the place I knew best, the Han family's company. Instead of going inside, I sat quietly on a bench across the street, staring at the office building. In my past life, I had treated that place like my battlefield. I poured my heart, soul, and countless sleepless nights into it, believing I was building a future. Now, I finally understood the truth. To them, I was nothing more than a replaceable employee, a workhorse who sacrificed everything so others could enjoy the rewards. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Han Shui. Asterisk. Chen Yu, did my mom come see you? Don't take her words to heart. She's always like that. Wait for me tonight. We need to talk. Asterisk, a second message followed. Asterisk, I bought your favorite pan-fried buns. I'll bring them over later. Asterisk, looking at those messages, I felt nothing but disgust. It was the same trick she had always used. Hurt me first, then offer a little kindness, so I'd mistake it for love. In my previous life, Even the smallest bit of affection from her was enough to make me work even harder, desperate to prove I was worthy. Now, it only made me sick. Without hesitation, I deleted her contact. Then I bought a new phone number, took a taxi back to my tiny apartment, and looked around the room. It was small but tidy. Photos of Han Shui and me still covered the walls. The bookshelf held the books she had given me. One by one, I gathered everything connected to her and stuffed it into a large trash bag. I tore up our photos, burned every love letter, and threw away every cheap gift she'd ever given me. When the last photo frame disappeared into the trash, an incredible sense of relief washed over me, as if the chains that had bound me for the last 10 years had finally broken. I opened my laptop and wrote a simple resignation letter. Asterisk, I, Chen Yu, hereby resign effective immediately. No need to process my final salary. Please approve my resignation. Asterisk, I didn't care about the paycheck anymore. I just wanted to cut all ties with the Han family as quickly as possible. After emailing the letter to HR and my supervisor, I closed my laptop for the last time. I picked up the suitcase I had already packed. Inside were only a few clothes and my important documents. Everything else could stay behind. It was nothing more than a farewell to my foolish past. Without looking back, I dragged my suitcase out of the apartment and walked away from the life I would never return to. As I walked downstairs, I spotted a familiar figure. It was Han Shui. She was holding a bag of my favorite pan-fried buns, anxiously looking around. The moment she saw me dragging a suitcase, she froze before rushing over. Chen Yu, where are you going? There was a trace of authority in her voice. I didn't stop. I didn't even look at her as I walked past. She reached out to grab my arm, but I stepped aside and finally looked her in the eyes. It was the first time I'd truly looked at her since my rebirth. She was still as beautiful as ever, wearing flawless makeup. But beneath that beautiful face, all I could see now was selfishness, hypocrisy, and cruelty. What are you doing? I'm talking to you. Seeing me ignore her, she grew irritated. Are you throwing a tantrum because my mom talked to you? I already told you not to take her seriously. I'll speak to her again. And what's with the suitcase? Where are you going? Running away? Don't you think you're being childish? She still spoke with that same condescending tone, as if my entire world should revolve around her. She would never understand. I smiled faintly. Han Shui, aren't you curious what your mother said to me? I pulled the bank card from my pocket and held it up. She gave me 500,000 yuan to leave you. Her expression changed instantly. Chen Yu, don't take it to heart. I cut her off. I already did. I accepted the money and promised her I'd disappear. Her face turned red with anger and embarrassment. She clearly never expected me to expose something like this so openly. In her eyes, I should have been ashamed. Instead, she asked in disbelief, how could you take her money? Is our relationship only worth 500,000 yuan to you? I couldn't help laughing. Han Shui, did we ever really have a relationship? You enjoyed my love, watched me work like a dog for your family's company, and then happily rode around with another man. You said you loved me while planning a future where I'd sacrifice everything, and you'd enjoy the rewards after I was gone. My voice stayed calm, but every word hit like a knife. Her face slowly turned pale. That's not true. You're talking nonsense. She couldn't even meet my eyes. I gave a cold smile. Really? Then stop pretending. You know exactly what kind of person you are, and now I do too. As for this 500,000 yuan, I don't see it as the price of our relationship. I see it as unpaid wages for all the years I worked myself to exhaustion for your family. It's less than I deserve, but it's better than nothing. After all, my life was never worth much in your eyes. Without waiting for her response, I picked up my suitcase and walked away. Chen Yu, stop. Explain yourself. Did you find out something? I didn't look back. I know everything. I know your plans. I know the company's hidden problems. I even know your future. One day, you'll fall from the top and lose everything. And when that day comes, I'll be standing at the peak, quietly watching it all happen. I hailed a taxi and headed straight for the airport. As the city slowly disappeared behind me, I took out my new phone and booked a flight to Zishuangbana. There was no special reason. I simply want to go somewhere warm, somewhere I could finally breathe. From this day forward, I would live for myself. As for Han Shui and everything connected to her, they could stay buried in the past forever. My phone suddenly buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Asterisk, Chen Yu, where the hell are you? At least explain yourself before you leave. Did you misunderstand something? Lehigh and I are just friends. Asterisk, I looked at the message and couldn't help but smile. Just friends? Friends who planned to use me until I had nothing left. Friends who were waiting for me to die so they could enjoy everything I had built. Without another thought, I blocked the number and turned off my phone. Outside the plane window, the setting sun painted the sky a brilliant orange. A new life had finally begun. The air in Zishuangbana was warm and humid, filled with the scent of fresh soil and tropical plants. I checked into a quiet homestay surrounded by lush greenery. The moment I opened the window, all I could see was endless green. On my first day, I did absolutely nothing. I slept from morning until night, then from night until the next morning, making up for all the sleep I had lost in my previous life. When I finally woke up, I felt like a completely different person. The exhaustion that had weighed on me for years was finally gone. I turned on my old phone after leaving it off for days. The moment it connected, messages and missed calls flooded in. Most of them were from Han Shui and her friends. Asterisk, Chen Yu, where are you? Call me back. Asterisk, asterisk. Are you even a man? If you have something to say, say it to our faces instead of disappearing. Asterisk, asterisk. Xiao Shui is worried sick. Stop acting like a child and come back. Asterisk, I read every message without feeling a thing. There were also several from the company's HR department. Asterisk, we received your resignation letter, but you can't resign without following company procedures. Leaving now will be treated as job abandonment. Asterisk, asterisk, President Han wants you back immediately. There's an important project waiting for you. Asterisk, asterisk, if you don't return, your professional record could be affected. Asterisk, threats mixed with persuasion. The same tricks as always. I laughed quietly and deleted every message. Then I inserted my new SIM card and logged into an old investment account. It only contained the small savings I'd earned from part-time jobs during college. As I stared at the screen, memories from my previous life came rushing back. The greatest advantage of being reborn was knowing the future. I knew which stocks would explode in value and which industries would dominate the coming years. Without hesitation, I invested 200,000 yuan into a little-known tech company that everyone ignored. In 6 months, a major technological breakthrough would send its stock price soaring more than 10 times. The remaining 300,000 yuan I quietly converted into Bitcoin through several intermediaries. When everything was finished, I shut down the computer and stretched with satisfaction. Now all I had to do was wait for those investments to grow. As for me, it was finally time to enjoy the life I had never allowed myself to live. Over the next month, I completely relaxed. I wandered through the villages of Zishuangbana, watched elephants and peacocks, drank homemade rice wine with the locals, enjoyed hand-grabbed rice, and explored the tropical botanical garden, amazed by the incredible plants nature had created. I rented a motorcycle and rode along winding mountain roads, letting the rushing wind wash away every bit of stress and regret. I was no longer the Chen Yu who stayed up day and night worrying about company projects. I was no longer the man who sacrificed his dignity just to please the woman he loved. For the first time in a very long while, I was simply Chen Yu, a free man, finally living for himself. Every now and then, I would switch on my old phone just to see how they were reacting. Han Shui's messages slowly changed. At first, she was angry. Then she became desperate. And eventually, she started begging. Asterisk, Chen Yu, I was wrong. Please come back. Let's start over, okay? Asterisk, asterisk. Lehigh and I really aren't together. You have to believe me. That day, he just insisted on driving me home. Asterisk, asterisk. These days without you have made me realize I can't live without you. Please come back. I miss you so much. As I stared at the screen, memories from my previous life came rushing back. The greatest advantage of being reborn was knowing the future. I knew which stocks would explode in value and which industries would dominate the coming years. Without hesitation, I invested 200,000 yuan into a little-known tech company that everyone ignored. In 6 months, a major technological breakthrough would send its stock price soaring more than 10 times. The remaining 300,000 yuan I quietly converted into Bitcoin through several intermediaries. When everything was finished, I shut down the computer and stretched with satisfaction. Now all I had to do was wait for those investments to grow. As for me, it was finally time to enjoy the life I had never allowed myself to live. Over the next month, I completely relaxed. I wandered through the villages of Xishingbana, watched elephants and peacocks, drank homemade rice wine with the locals, enjoyed hand-grabbed rice, and explored the tropical botanical garden, amazed by the incredible plants nature had created. I rented a motorcycle and rode along winding mountain roads, letting the rushing wind wash away every bit of stress and regret. I was no longer the Chen Yu who stayed up day and night worrying about company projects. I was no longer the man who sacrificed his dignity just to please the woman he loved. For the first time in a very long while, I was simply Chen Yu, a free man, finally living for himself. Every now and then, I would switch on my old phone just to see how they were reacting. Han Shui's messages slowly changed. At first, she was angry. Then she became desperate, and eventually, she started begging. Asterisk, Chen Yu, I was wrong. Please come back. Let's start over, okay? Asterisk, asterisk. Li Hai and I really aren't together. You have to believe me. That day, he just insisted on driving me home. Asterisk, asterisk. These days without you have made me realize I can't live without you. Please come back. I miss you so much. Asterisk, if this had been my previous life, those words would have been enough to break me. I probably would have booked the first flight home, knelt in front of her, and begged for another chance. But now, I only found it funny. She didn't miss me. She missed the man who obeyed her every word, who worked like a machine for her family, and who solved every problem they threw at him. I never replied. I simply watched her perform her one-person drama. A month later, I flew to Chengdu. There, I became the laziest version of myself. Every day, I ate hot pot and skewers, trying every local dish I had only seen on food shows in my previous life. I wandered through wide and narrow alleys, strolled along Jinli Ancient Street, and spent peaceful afternoons drinking tea at People's Park. For the first time, I truly enjoyed a slow, ordinary life. Another month passed before I received the call I had been expecting. It was Jiang Wei, my only real friend from the Han Group. He worked in the technical department and had always treated me with kindness. Back when everyone else kept their distance, he was the only one willing to talk to me. Brother Yu, where are you now? He asked cautiously. Traveling, I replied with a smile. What's wrong? Did you really quit the company? Yeah. There was a brief silence. Then Jiang Wei sighed. Brother Yu, something terrible has happened. I pretended to sound surprised. What happened? Wasn't everything going well? Don't even ask. He let out another sigh. After you left, President Han handed the itinerary project over to Li Hai. I see, I said calmly. Han Shui's friend. Yeah, him. Jiang Wei's frustration was obvious. That guy barely knows what he's doing, yet he acts like an expert. He completely tore apart the project framework you spent so much time building. He even said your plan was too conservative and insisted on replacing it with his so-called internet thinking. And what happened? I asked. The first demo was a complete disaster. The partners were extremely disappointed. They said the company looked unprofessional and are now reconsidering the partnership. The entire company is in chaos, and President Han is under so much pressure she's developed mouth ulcers. I calmly picked up my teacup and blew away the floating tea leaves, hiding the faint smile on my face. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had expected. That project was the Han Group's biggest opportunity for the next several years. It was also the project I had poured countless hours and endless effort into. I was the only person who truly understood its core technology and implementation plan. Before leaving, I had intentionally left behind several technical backdoors and a few seemingly insignificant details that were actually critical to the entire system. Someone like Li Hai could never figure them out. Desperate to prove he was better than me, he was bound to make major changes. And those changes were now costing the company dearly. Jiang Wei's voice became more serious. Brother Yu, Han Shui and everyone else have been searching everywhere for you. She even came to the company today and asked if I knew where you were. Brother Yu, why don't you come back and take a look? I let out a dry laugh. Go back for what? To clean up Li Hai's mess? But you cared so much about that company. And Han Shui still. I cut him off. Han Shui and I are over. Whether the Han family's company survives or goes bankrupt has nothing to do with me anymore. Jiang Wei fell silent. You broke up? Since when? The day I left. So if they come looking for you again, just tell them you don't know where I am. And don't call me about them anymore. After saying that, I hung up. Jiang Wei was a good friend, and I didn't want to drag him into my revenge. Leaning back in my bamboo chair, I looked up at the gray sky. Despite the cloudy weather, my mood had never been brighter. Han Kui, Li Ai. The real show had only just begun. Over the following days, I completely cut ties with my past. I traveled through the countryside around Chengdu, and with every new place I visited, my heart grew lighter. The resentment I had carried from my previous life slowly crumbled away, like a giant rock breaking into dust and disappearing in the wind. I wasn't living just to get revenge anymore. I was living to enjoy the second chance life had given me. As for revenge, it was nothing more than a little bonus along the way. 2 months later, the 200,000 yuan I had invested in the stock market had grown into 1 million. Without hesitation, I sold everything and invested the money into another pharmaceutical stock I knew would soon take off. The 300,000 yuan I had put into Bitcoin was also steadily increasing in value. Everything was unfolding exactly as I remembered. For the first time, money was no longer something I worried about. Just when I thought I had finally left my old life behind, an unexpected visitor shattered my peace. That day, I was in a small town near Qinghai Lake, eating at a Tibetan restaurant. Not long after I sat down, someone familiar appeared at the entrance. It was Han Shui. She had lost a lot of weight and looked exhausted. The elegant makeup she always wore was gone, replaced by a tired, worn face. For a brief moment, I wondered how she had found me. Then I realized the answer. With the Han family's resources, finding someone wasn't impossible if they were determined enough. Maybe part of me had also wanted to see what she had become. The moment she spotted me, her eyes lit up. She hurried over. Chen Yu. Her voice trembled as if she were about to cry. I remained seated, calmly watching her. I finally found you. She stopped in front of me as tears streamed down her face. Do you know how hard I've been looking for you? She reached for my arm, but I quietly stepped aside. My cold reaction caught her off guard. Chen Yu, what's wrong? Why won't you talk to me? Are you still angry? She quickly continued. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have gotten so close to Li Hai. I shouldn't have doubted you. Can you forgive me? I looked at her tear-filled eyes without feeling anything. What do you want from me, Ms. Han? The formal title made her freeze. She stared at me in disbelief. Chen Yu, what did you just call me? Miss Han. I answered calmly. I'm Han Shui, your Xiao Shui. Han Shui then. I looked at her indifferently. So, what exactly do you want? Only then did she realize this wasn't another argument. I hadn't come back. I had truly changed. The panic in her eyes became impossible to hide. Chen Yu, something happened to the company. The Spirit Project failed. Our partners want to withdraw their investment, and they're demanding a huge penalty for breach of contract. I simply nodded. I calmly picked up my chopsticks, grabbed a piece of beef, and chewed it slowly. It was surprisingly good. Once again, my reaction caught Han Shui completely off guard. She had expected me to panic, to worry about the company, to jump in and solve everything like I always had. Instead, I acted as if she were telling me someone else's story. Chen Yu, she finally couldn't hold back anymore. Her voice rose in frustration. Are you even listening? The company is falling apart. My family is finished. I looked up at her calmly. So, she froze. What do you mean, so? Your family's company is collapsing. What does that have to do with me? How can it have nothing to do with you? She shot back. You built the Spirit Project. You're the only one who understands it. You're the only person who can save the company. I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth with a napkin. Han Shui, did you forget? I already resigned. I'm no longer an employee of the Han Group. And your own mother paid me 500,000 yuan to disappear. I'm simply keeping my promise. Her face turned completely pale. She had never expected me to bring that up so calmly. That was my mother's decision, not mine, she said hurriedly. I'll return the money. I'll pay you back double. No, 10 times that amount. Just come back and save the company. I couldn't help laughing. Han Shui, do you really think I still care about that little bit of money? I looked at her with pity. You still don't understand. I didn't leave because of the money. I left because I refused to keep being a fool. She stood there speechless. I continued. Do you know what's most ridiculous about you? You're the one who's cornered, the one who came all this way to beg me. Yet you're still acting as if helping you is my responsibility. What makes you think I'll save you? Because of that so-called relationship we had? Or because you think your pretty face is enough? Every word hit her like a knife. She had always been the admired princess, someone everyone catered to. She had probably never been spoken to like this before. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. She probably never imagined that the Chen Yu who had once obeyed her without question, the man who never even dared raise his voice, would now make such a bold demand. By then, the conversation had already drawn attention. The diners around us began glancing in our direction, curious to see what was happening. The stares from the people around us felt like needles. I kept my eyes fixed on Han Shui. Her body trembled slightly. I could see the battle happening inside her. On one side was her family's future, the wealth and comfortable life she had always known. On the other was the little pride she still had left. I wasn't in a hurry. I simply sat there and waited. After a long silence, she finally made her choice. She slowly closed her eyes and leaned toward me, trembling. Her lips were cold and stiff, carrying the bitter taste of despair. I didn't respond. I didn't even close my eyes. I simply watched her expression, the pale face, the humiliation she tried so hard to hide, and her trembling eyelashes. Just as she was about to pull away, I reached out, caught the back of her neck, and held her there for a moment. Her whole body froze. She instinctively tried to pull away, but I didn't let go immediately. There was no tenderness in my actions, only the cold satisfaction of revenge. After a long moment, I finally released her. She stumbled back 2 steps before barely managing to steady herself. Is this enough now? She asked in a hoarse voice. I calmly picked up a napkin and wiped my mouth. I already told you. If you're going to prove your sincerity, don't stop halfway. Let's go somewhere private and see just how sincere you really are. Han Shui swayed as if she might collapse. She stared at me as though I had become a complete stranger. Chen Yu, do you really have to do this? I let out a cold laugh. What? Did you think this was a negotiation? Han Shui, stop pretending you're the victim. You're the one begging me. You're in no position to bargain. She slowly closed her eyes. After several seconds, she finally whispered, Fine, I'll go with you. There wasn't a trace of warmth in my smile. I led her out of the restaurant. A strong wind blew outside, tossing her clothes as she silently followed behind me like someone who had completely lost her spirit. Instead of taking her to a luxury hotel, I chose the cheapest motel I could find in town. The room was tiny, old, and poorly furnished. The moment Han Shui walked inside, she frowned. The disgust on her face was impossible to hide. Here, I sat down on an old chair that looked ready to collapse and crossed my legs. What's wrong? Miss Han is used to presidential suites. A place like this must feel beneath you. I looked at her calmly. To me, this is already more than enough. Because this is exactly what you're worth. My words cut into her once again. Without saying anything, she walked to the window and stood there with her back to me, staring silently at the empty street outside. She looked completely motionless. I didn't pay her any attention. Instead, I took out my phone and checked my investments. Just as I had predicted, the pharmaceutical company had released major positive news over the past few days. Its stock had surged repeatedly. My original 1 million yuan had already grown into 3 million. Watching the numbers rise across the screen brought me far more satisfaction than seeing Han Shui standing there in silence. Money, freedom, a future that belonged to me alone. Those were worth far more than revenge. I didn't even notice how much time had passed. Night gradually fell, and darkness filled the room. Neither of us bothered to turn on the lights. The small motel room was dim and silent. Han Shui was still standing by the window. Finally, I spoke. She flinched slightly before slowly turning around and walking toward me. Under the faint light, I couldn't clearly see her expression. All I could see were her empty, lifeless eyes. She stopped in front of me. I stood up and slowly walked toward her. Instinctively, she stepped backward until her back pressed against the cold wall. I reached out, gripped her chin, and forced her to look at me. Look at me, Han Shui. Do you know how many times I imagined this moment? There was a time when I wanted nothing more than to have you. I dreamed of seeing you cry and beg me to forgive you. I paused for a moment, but now, I let go of her chin and took a step back. When I look at you now, I feel absolutely nothing. I'm just bored. She stared at me in confusion, unable to understand. I reached into my wallet, pulled out every bill I had, only a few thousand yuan, and tossed the cash at her one note at a time. The bills scattered across the floor and brushed against her face. Take the money and get out. My voice was ice cold. You came here because you wanted me to save your company. You thought if you sacrifice yourself, I'd become that same idiot again, the man who would happily work himself to death for your family. I looked at her without the slightest trace of warmth. You think far too highly of yourself, Han Shui, and you've underestimated me. I didn't bring you here because I wanted anything from you. I only wanted you to understand one thing. The sacrifice you believe is so valuable means absolutely nothing to me. It's cheap, and it's pathetic. Shock filled her face. Then came humiliation. Finally, she completely broke down. She collapsed onto the floor, buried her face in her hands, and cried uncontrollably. Her sobs echoed through the small room. I simply looked at her. There wasn't a single trace of pity left in my heart. She had chosen this path herself. Without another word, I turned, opened the door, and walked out. As I reached the motel entrance, her desperate voice rang out behind me. Chen Yu, why are you treating me like this? Why? I stopped for a brief moment. Without turning around, I answered calmly, you made your choice. So don't regret it now. Then I walked into the darkness without looking back. Behind me, her heartbreaking cries slowly faded into the night.